So today I'm in the midst of a airline roundup, and where I started with the airline roundup for investors and from a financial standpoint, I begin with the obvious impacts of COVID-19 coronavirus. It's March 23rd. We kind of begun that trend out of the shutdown. Demand has increased at its bottom level, at its lowest levels, about 3.5%. Now it's about 12.5% over a month and change. 12.5%, pretty lousy, but a 350% gain from 3.5%. So there's that always if you need it. And what we're going to be looking at in particular is kind of what's the prediction for forward demand. And if you're trying to decide whether or not you want to invest in the airlines, either on a long-term basis or on a short-term speculative basis, this is kind of one of those predominant issues that you may have in your mind. So is it going to be a very slow, gradual recovery that takes 12 months? That in September, Calhoun, the CEO for Boeing, for example, said 25% demand in September, 50% or less demand at the end of the year. In that case, someone's going bankrupt. Maybe a couple of airlines are going bankrupt. Or is it going to be a little bit better for that? And at this point, I don't think the market is really pricing it to be much better than that. I think it's pricing it to be better than Calhoun's own model, but I don't necessarily know that the market is really pricing a sharp rebound. And we have some numbers to deal with here, predominantly as it relates to September 11th, the events of 9/11, and the fear that it inspired and sort of the decrease in demand out of that, and the Great Recession also, since we are in a major serious recessionary event. We're going to look at numbers from both of those to help us try to understand or predict as effectively as we can what these numbers are going to look like going forward. So let's get to the numbers. All right, folks, here we are, travelingfinancialadvisor.com. You can feel free to come over to the website and get some of this information. I keep it updated several times a month. You can also follow me on Twitter, Tdunns, Tdunns. You can follow me there on Twitter too, and I post on Twitter anytime. I post here on travelingfinancialadvisor.com. Right now we're doing a roundup here on the airlines. Obviously been a great deal of change in the industry over the past couple of months. So I've been looking at the airlines specifically, been doing in the middle of an airline roundup right now as far as the potential implications as it relates to investors towards what's going on right now, and sort of a presentation, a progression, a guess, sort of a wild guess right now is kind of where we're at with regards to what's going to happen in the future. However, I do have some numbers to use to try to figure out that wild guess, which is kind of where we're at, because no one really knows what the rebound's going to look like out of coronavirus. We've never had anything like this before, where the entire economy worldwide has more or less shut down, and aviation went to about 3.5% of peak demand, which is just completely unprecedented. However, we do have a couple within the past 20 years, a couple of examples that'll cast a little bit of light on what we might anticipate. 9/11 casts a little bit of light, and it does that from the standpoint of fear of flying. People were afraid of flying after the terrorist events. They were pretty well publicized, pretty striking images on the news, and made people a little bit scared to go and fly. So from a fear standpoint, and really COVID-19 coronavirus, it's the same thing. People aren't necessarily scared to fly per se, but they don't want to be packed into a tube in close proximity with a lot of strangers. So effectively, it's the same thing. But people do need to fly, and the need to fly for a percentage of businesses and individuals is going to outweigh some of the fears or the hesitancy that comes along with it. So that's the point of the 9/11 here comparison, to see what we can expect. Again, you can come to the website, travelingfinancialadvisor.com. It's under my blogs. You can find it there. Past year employment comparison, after effects of 9/11, the Great Recession is where you'll find it. And we have some tables here if you want to come and look at it. You can see the actual numbers, domestic, international, and then it just shows you over a period of time. We got several different tables there that goes over several different months that shows you the impact on demand from peak demand into what happened after 9/11. Great Recession provides our example of a significant recessionary event, what that does to airline demand. And obviously we're in a significant recessionary event right now. And so same thing here. We have the chart here. You can come look at the numbers if you want. A few different pages of that, several months as you progress through the Great Recession. So I got a couple, and this is really what I want to focus on here. We got a couple of graphs here. First is demand, COVID-19. So we start here in the beginning, first week of April, when things have kind of stabilized here in this just beneath 4% of peak demand level. Just an incredible decrease in demand. You go out here a little ways, the chart goes way the heck up here, up to 100%. So pretty sharp drop, and then just kind of levels here at around 4% for a while. You can see now, yeah, it's May 23rd right now, and you can see down here, May 22nd is the data that the TSA, they keep it up to date, which is pretty nice. And all this data is day of the week aggregate from year to year. So the days of the week shouldn't impact this data at all. So I just divided last year's data for the same day of the week to this year's, and you can see here we're 12%, about 12.5% is what it's rebounded to as of yesterday, leading into the Memorial Day weekend. So you can see here kind of the beginning of what looks like an exponential upswing in demand. We'll see how long that lasts. At some point up here, it's going to sort of start to level off again, I anticipate. So I think it's going to become more and more exponential. We're going to see some fairly significant increases over the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then somewhere up here, I'm guessing around the 50 to 60% level, it's going to go into a much more gradual, long-term recovery with perhaps a few dips as we get in the winter months and potentially recurrences of COVID-19 coronavirus. Some more hotspots may develop, unfortunately, when we get to the cooler weather. But for now, demand's increasing. From the bottoms here to where we were at yesterday, it's about 350% increase. So as a percentage, pretty good percentage. 12.5% is still pretty lousy, but the increase has been pretty good over the past little over a month. So down here in this next graph, we have 9/11. I just combined here the effects of diminishing demand caused by 9/11, a fear event of aviation, and the Great Recession, a significant recessionary event. And that's kind of the situation we're in, is a combined event. So we're saying what happens if we combine those events. You can see here, start off, we're starting off at 3.5%. It started off with just under 60%. If you combine the two of them, that's 57%. The first month here, the big move up, you'll see, and these are all months here at the bottom. These are just months with 9/11, obviously starting in September. The Great Recession that I mixed in there starts in 2008 when demand really started to drop off. But the first month, the big gain here is largely due to 9/11, September. Several days, the National Aerospace System was shut down completely. So there was a huge decrease in September. By October, we were back to basically full activities. So demand was still down. Passengers really didn't want to get on airplanes because they were scared. Terrorist attacks, obviously, the visible representation of that with the Twin Towers falling. A lot of people were just not interested in flying at that point in time, but still a fairly significant increase in demand when things open back up. We're kind of in that state right now where things are opening back up out of the quarantine, coronavirus, economic shutdown. So I think we'll see a fairly sharp increase over the next month or two, similar to this, and then it'll just become more gradual. No real surprise there, with a couple of just fluctuations based upon what potentially may occur down the road. Obviously, if we get vaccines or better treatments, we'll see a sort of an acceleration of the curve. If we have reoccurrence, in the wintertime, we may see some more dips there in the curve. And you can see here, though, it took about 9 months to get to 90%. And again, this is a combination. With 9 months, 9/11 or Great Recession independently, they were up around 95%. They had recovered most of the demand from peak. But when you combine them both, about 90% 9 months later. So that would be more or less, coming into the winter months, maybe heading towards spring, where we'll see 90%. Right now, no one's really forecasting that. Delta, based upon their forecast that they've communicated with their pilots, believes that they're going to be down around 66 to 70% next summer. I have a feeling they're kind of being a little pessimistic because they just can't afford to burn cash, so they're going to shoot towards the low end of anticipations. According to this model here, they'll be closer to 90%. I think they will be closer to 90%. So as an investor, that's going to be, if they get to 90% with all the shrinking they're going to do, they'll be back in the black, probably fairly significantly back in the black by next summer if this comes to pass. So once again, if you ever want to come and look at it, www.travelingfinancialadvisor.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, TDUNNS, TDUNS3, the number 3 at Twitter. And as I update this, I post that there as well.
So obviously been a tough couple of months for the airline business, been a tough couple of months for all of us worldwide, fighting coronavirus, COVID-19. Hopefully the curve is going back down and it'll just keep going back down. We can get a vaccine and some treatments and put all this in our rearview mirror. I am the traveling financial advisor, so as it relates to the airlines, I have a particular interest in the airlines. I spend a lot of time flying around on the airlines. I enjoy traveling and the places they can take me. Haven't been able to get out of my dungeon very much recently, and I'm looking forward, itching to get back out there again. So once again, thank you for joining us. I do have links down below if you want to follow me on Twitter. In about a week, I will post the contents of what I'm actually wearing beneath the frame right now. If any of you guess, once again, the first person who guesses will get a steak dinner on me. In the meantime, please enjoy, keep safe. We'll see you.